The Dershow.
David Wolpe, who is a liberal critic of Israel, but a Zionist. But here's what he says. Based on a year that he spent at Harvard. He spent a year at the Divinity School, which is the worst of the schools. The Divinity School has become the Der Stürme of the anti-Semitic center of Harvard. The Divinity School and the School of Public Health are both the Der Stürmes. They are kind of the Nazi megaphones for the anti-Semitism at Harvard. So here's what David Volpe writes about his experience. Students, these are talking about Jewish students were insulted, shunned, harassed, and hounded in 100 ways. An Israeli student was mobbed and assaulted at a Dayan protest the day after October 7th. Privilege training for Jewish students, mandatory. You have to admit that if you're Jewish, you have a privilege, were run by the university. Another student, a former soldier in the IDF, told me she was afraid to walk alone to her dorm. Students were ghosted by longtime friends. One was told by friends it would hurt their careers to associate with Zionists. Professors removed all Israel sources from the syllabus. Required readings in a public health course entitled Settler Colonial Determinants on Health teaches that, quote, Zionism manipulated Judaism as a religion to reinterpret history and redefine Jewishness in terms of ethnic belonging. Goes on and on and on and on, and tells stories and quotes from students who were just terrified to be at Harvard. These are students who are paying close to $100,000 to try to get the best education in the world, and instead they're getting propaganda. They're not getting education. The report documents over and over again how classes were turned into polemical propaganda mills, just making anti-Israel points and anti-American points and anti-Christian points in some instances. And so, universities should have dealt with this on their own, but they have failed to do it because of faculty pressure and this nonsense notion that this is all protected by academic freedom. No, academic freedom applies to everybody in the university, including Jewish students. And if students are denied the opportunity to express their views, that's as much a denial of academic freedom as anything else. And so universities have not made a real effort to try to root out the bigotry and the double standards. They are much like some of the Southern schools in the 1950s that actually encouraged racism. And that's what we're seeing today. We're seeing universities, including Harvard, encouraging in many departments, particularly, again, the School of Public Health and the Divinity School, encouraging anti-Semitism. And it's such a scandal that happened at the Divinity School. The Divinity School shouldn't exist anyway. There's no reason for a university to have a divinity school. It's not, divinity is not scientific. It's not subject to the scientific method. Harvard started as a divinity school. It started as a school for Protestants, virulently anti-Catholic for many, many years, virulently anti-Jewish for many years, anti-Muslim, just a Protestant theology school. But it's been a long time since that was true. And, universities should have math departments and science departments and engineering departments, but they shouldn't have theology departments any more than they should have astrology departments. What's the difference between theology and astrology? They're based on unprovable assumptions. You can't prove religion. You can't subject religion to the scientific method any more than you can subject astrology to the scientific method. But schools have traditionally had divinity departments, and the Harvard Divinity School has ceased to serve any legitimate purpose. It's become a completely hard left, anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic assortment of bigoted people who claim to be professors of, I don't know, what are you a professor of if you're a theology professor, a professor of hermeneutics, a professor of does God exist? I mean, what do you teach? What do you learn in a divinity school? I mean, It's just I never understood. I mean, 25 years ago, when Harvard's president Larry Summers became the president, and he called me in and said, "What should Harvard be doing different?" And I said, "It should be abolishing the divinity school." This is before any of that. I just never saw any function of the divinity school. I taught with the divinity professor, Harvey Cox, who was brilliant, but he wasn't teaching that kind of stuff. He was teaching more about the effect of religion on life in America. He wrote a brilliant book about how religion impacts American life. Okay, I can understand that, but you don't need a divinity school for that. You can have a department of religion in a sociology department or an anthropology department. You don't need a divinity school. You don't need a school whose head is a divine somebody. I mean, if you're a Catholic school, yeah. If you're a Jewish school, yeah. I mean, Yeshiva University, sure, it should have a department or a whole school of Talmudic studies. Or if you're a Catholic school, sure, you should have. But if you're a secular school, what Harvard purports to be, I just don't get why you need a divinity school. You need a public health school, but you need a public health school that cares about public health. That doesn't define public health the way this does. Here, I'll read you something about the divinity, the public health school. The same thing was okay. It's called the Chan School of Public Health. Chan has a truth, and this is just how we think. Chan has never had a single event that is pro-Israel or even neutral. It's all one-sided. There were tons of flyers around the school proclaiming the most important thing in public health is Palestine. And there's only one exception. Why is Palestine important for public health? Why isn't the Sudan, where people are dying of starvation, really dying of starvation? Why aren't they the subject of any research at the School of Public Health? Why is Palestine